What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Thanks for clicking on another episode of Break the Silence. I am your host, Cyborg, and we just got done watching an excellent basketball game, a battle of Texas between the Houston Rockets and the San Antonio Spurs. Two teams vying for playoff positioning in the Western Conference. Two teams who've played very good basketball this year. And tonight, the San Antonio Spurs came out on top 111-99 in a game that the Rockets led at halftime by 8 points. They were up in the first half by 15 points. The Spurs made a run at the end of the first half, a 7-0 run at the end of the first half to cut the lead to 8 going into half. And the Spurs ran away with it in the second half in a game that was highly impressive for really so many reasons. We saw great performances out of a lot of the main contributors, for the San Antonio Spurs. And I saw some of the flaws, in my opinion, from the Rockets and some of the things we were worried about, especially when Fred VanVleet went down with an injury. It feels like they're missing a little bit of the guard play. But before we do get into the game, make sure you take a second to subscribe to the channel. We are growing fast. We're grinding. We are almost at 1,300 subscribers, and it's only going up from there. So if you love basketball talk, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and feel free to comment and argue with me. I'll go back and forth all day. I really enjoy that stuff. In games like this, I want to spend most of my time focusing on the team that won the game and what I saw from them, and then a little bit of time at the end talking about the team that lost the game and some of my concerns if I feel like there are things that stood out to me. In this game in particular, what stood out to me was the incredible guard play by the San Antonio Spurs. Obviously, we know that they have very good players all around, and they have a freak, an alien in Victor Wembanyama. It's hard to overstate how impressive he is. Tonight he had 28 points, 16 rebounds, and 5 blocks. He got to the free throw line 15 times, hit 12 of them. A guy who really can dominate the basketball game in so many ways. And he only played 29 minutes because he was in a little bit of foul trouble there. But one of the things that was so impressive in this game is the Spurs made a huge run in the third quarter with Wemby on the bench. And it's because, in my opinion, of their elite guard play with Fox, Stephon Castle, and Dylan Harper. Tonight, De'Aaron Fox had 18 points, Castle had 16, and Dylan Harper had 16. If you watch the Spurs, not only are these guys so fast, so calculated on offense, but on the defensive end of the court, man, they're so athletic. They defend at a really high level and make anything you're trying to get really difficult. That's why a big reason I think the Spurs are third in the NBA in defensive rating. Now, obviously, Wemby's probably the best defender in the NBA by a good amount. Just his ability to contest everything at the paint. But it also starts at the perimeter. If you're going to be a great defensive team, you have to be able to guard that three-point line in the modern NBA. And Wemby can't do that by himself. When you have a guy in the paint, though, that's so dominant and able to really deter so many things in there, it allows your guys on the perimeter to be more aggressive. And that's why having these players that the Spurs have in Castle, in De'Aaron Fox, and in Dylan Harper is so effective because they're able to use that speed and athleticism to be more aggressive. And I think it's unbelievable. One of the things that's going to be in the news and in the media a lot is this Giannis Antetokounmpo news that he's potentially wanting out of Milwaukee. And the Spurs are a team that have the assets to compete for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I think I would be very hesitant if I'm the Spurs on doing that because you have these guards in Castle and Harper in particular that are so young and so talented that I would be really hesitant to get off of those guys for a player like Giannis, who obviously is one of the best players in the NBA, but you would want to win right now with a player like that, especially because he can't shoot. And you think of, big men as they deteriorate a little bit physically, as we imagine Giannis will do in the next, 5 years or whatever. You could have these two young guards that could be staples of your team for the next 10 to 15 years alongside your young superstar and Victor Wembanyama. So if I was the San Antonio Spurs, that's not a move that I think I would make. I think I would stick with my guys. We also saw impressive performances tonight from Keldon Johnson. He had 17 points he's had kind of a bounce back year in my opinion. He was a guy that obviously the Spurs were very high on years ago. They signed him to a big contract, kind of felt like he disappointed a little bit. But he's kind of made a bounce back this year. He's averaging 13.5 points a game, 6 rebounds. That's pretty solid considering he's coming off the bench for every game behind Harrison Barnes, a player that's had playoff experience, obviously had a terrible finals that one before he got moved, but he has a lot of experience and a good veteran presence. I love the fact that they have Harrison Barnes on this team. And the Spurs are impressive because they have 8 guys on their team right now, averaging over double figures. And then Luke Cornett, who I'm a big fan of as your backup center, averaging 8 points a game and 7 rebounds. So you're talking about a roster that goes 9 guys deep, and in the playoffs, that's going to be huge, so huge when you're playing teams like the Oklahoma City Thunder, like the Houston Rockets, like the Denver Nuggets. You're going to be able to out-depth a lot of those teams, and the Thunder, obviously, we know are very deep, but the Spurs have played unbelievable against them. I think when you have big games like this, obviously any team can lose a game in January and February. Some of these months are really a grind. But when you're talking about a game that's so important for seeding, you really want to watch it because guys should come to play. They should, we should see some of the things that give one team an advantage over the other, and I think it's the guard play. You watch the Houston Rockets, and it felt like so much of the game was Kevin Durant, Amin Thompson bringing the ball up the court and trying to initiate everything. And if Amin Thompson is literally unwilling to shoot three-pointers, then it made it to where the Spurs were playing so far off of him. Man, that is so difficult when you're playing a Spurs defense that's 3rd in the league and has a post presence like Victor Wembanyama that also rebounds at a high level. Now, both of these teams are actually very good in rebounding. The Rockets are number 1 in the NBA. The Spurs are 3rd. And in this particular game, they actually had the same amount of rebounds. But where the Spurs dominated this basketball game, and it's a big contributor really to Victor Wembanyama and the guard play, is points in the paint. It was 72 points for the Spurs to 48 for the Houston Rockets, meaning that the Rockets got to hit their jump shots. And tonight they didn't. They shot 39% from the field, 39 of 99. That's not going to get it done when you're playing a team like the Spurs, but they're going to force so many difficult shots, like I said. So 39% from the field in an NBA game is really impressive that the Spurs were able to hold a team with Kevin Durant to that level of efficiency. And one of the things we've saw from the Rockets all year is they've turned the ball over at a high clip. They're 26th in the NBA in turnovers. The Spurs are actually 4th. So they're, good at taking care of the basketball, but tonight that wasn't a contributing factor. It was really all about the points in the paint. When you look at all of the statistical categories for this game, Spurs dominated fast break points 21-5 and points in the paint 72-48. The Spurs guards get to the rim at a high level. Victor Wembanyama is able to get to the basket. So a lot of these, topics that I'm talking about, when you look at the Spurs guard play and the way that their roster is constructed, is you can see directly in some of the statistics and the analytics that come out after the games, and why I think the Spurs are a real threat to win the Western Conference, because man, they have played good. When you watch them in big games against the Rockets, they obviously went 3-1 against the Thunder and 3 super impressive wins. This game was in Houston. The Rockets are 28-17, the Spurs are 32-15. That's a 2-loss difference. So this game is important. These games are important for seeding, and when you're looking at could these teams play in the second round of the playoffs, games, if it came down to a game 7, it would be in San Antonio because of moments like this where they play at a really high level. On the flip side, the Houston Rockets obviously are a very good basketball team. I don't want to make it sound like I don't think that they're good. They're a team that's absolutely going to be competitive in the playoffs, but I'm not sure that they are going to be able to win a title because of their lack of point guard play and shot creators. It feels like way too much pressure, like I said, is on Kevin Durant, is on Amin Thompson. Sengun obviously is a good shot creator, but you sometimes need a guard. You need a guy who can shoot the basketball. Sengun's giving you 1 of 2 from three-point line. Thompson gave you no three-pointers. And the Rockets are 29th in the NBA in three-point attempts. In the modern NBA, I'm not 1,000,000% sure that that's going to be an effective way to make a run at an NBA championship. So they have the assets to make a move. They have, some young guys that they like. Reed Shepherd played quite a bit tonight. He was all right. 4 of 12, 9 points. Not super great. He played 26 minutes. But their depth is not great. But could you turn some of your young guys, whether it's Jabari Smith or some of those draft picks or, I know they don't want to trade Thompson, but could you trade Reed Shepherd or Jabari Smith into maybe some help at the guard position? Because right now you have forwards with KD and Sengun and Thompson. You have to get some point guard play. You have to get a distributor of the basketball. And every year, a team in the buyout market grabs a guy that they think is going to make a contribution to their team, and ultimately it does not. And I could see the Rockets thinking that they're picking up a Chris Paul type, and that'll be the difference, but it won't. You have to make a move if you're the Houston Rockets and you actually want to compete, which when you traded for Kevin Durant, that's what you're saying. You wanted to compete. I also don't know that I'd trade for Giannis if I was the Rockets. I feel like you'd have to give up Sengun and or Thompson and a ton of picks or whatever else. That's something I'd be hesitant to do. I do think it'll be interesting to see where Giannis goes. It might be something I'll make a video on at a later point. But these two teams, I would not make that move because I don't think Giannis really solves the Rockets' issues of their lack of three-point shooting, as well as their lack of creative offensive point guard. And then if you're the Spurs, I just love what you're building. You're second in the Western Conference. Why would you break that up when almost all of those guys are young guys and you have one veteran in Harrison Barnes? Luke Cornett a little bit, but you have a veteran in Harrison Barnes. Why would you break that up? Why would you get rid of one of these young guards? If 2 years from now you feel like it's stagnant and it's not working, you have a great trade piece still in Dylan Harper or Stephon Castle, then maybe you look at something like that. But I definitely would not be rushing it right now with this team because right now you're second in the West. And would it shock any of us if they ended up in the NBA Finals or obviously, if you make it out of the West, I think you got a good chance to win the NBA Finals, but it wouldn't shock any of us. Or if they took the Thunder to 7 games. So I wouldn't make a move. I think the Spurs are legit. They're one of my favorite teams in the entire NBA to watch because they defend at a high level. They fly around. They have one of the best players in the NBA and one of the most exciting players I've ever watched in my entire life in Victor Wembanyama. But that's all we got on this game. Make sure you take a second to subscribe to the channel. Let me know, would you make a Giannis trade for either of these teams? Or do you think the Spurs can come out of the Western Conference? Appreciate y'all watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Cyborg out.